Hi, welcome to Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. My name is George Ortega. I'm here with our very special guest, Nick Vale. Nick, great to have you again.
Happy to be here.
Okay, this is episode number 195 of our 2016 presidential election series. The title of this episode is Being Overweight, Free Will, and the 2016 presidential election. The theme for tonight is essentially that politicians have a duty, sworn duty to uphold the rights of citizens. And throughout society, many people who are overweight are discriminated against, in terms of jobs, in terms of opportunities. They're subjected to ridicule because they're overweight. Now, the theme of this show is like, this is extremely wrong. This is just it's immoral, because these people are ascribing free will to these people who are overweight, not realizing that these people are overweight because of reasons that are not up to them. It could be genetic reasons, it could be some kind of a glandular imbalance, whatever. So basically, our politicians should be championing the rights of overweight people, basically to be protected from being blamed, being slandered, being deprived of various human rights because of their overweightness. Okay, so that's the theme. Now, before we go into that, in the way we always do on every episode, we're going to first describe what people mean when they say free will. And in this episode, we're going to actually show how being overweight is yet another example of why we don't have a free will. So Nick, what is free will? When people say we have a free will, what do they mean?
First of all, I want to say thank you for watching. If you see this on the channel guide and you're surfing and you have an interest or a curiosity in this topic, you're already halfway home. George and I want to really give you that aha moment where you really can get it, and then you can tell your friends, and your friends can tell their friends, and then eventually we can change the world. What was the question? What is free will?
What is free will?
All right, so free will is the erroneous, nonsensical, and false belief that human beings can do otherwise in all their affairs, which leads to people believing, the people who believe in free will, that you are morally, ultimately, truly, and deeply morally responsible for your life. It's erroneous, nonsensical, and false. Guys like us who know and believe, know deep down logically and every which way philosophically and neurobiologically that free will is false, know that you could not have done otherwise, which makes us then go to the next point where that you are not fundamentally and ultimately to blame or actually to be praised for your life.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to just define free will in a different way.
See, aha.
Aha. Okay, aha moments. Absolutely. All right.
Our new theme.
Yes. Another way of understanding what this concept of free will is saying is basically people are saying that we have more control over our lives than would a puppet, a robot, or a computer. We all know that puppets, robots, computers, well, especially robots and computers, are programmed. What they do is programmed, just in the same way that we are genetically programmed and environmentally programmed. So the idea is that, for us to have free will, we would have to have more control over what we do than does a puppet or a robot, and the fact is that we don't. Why don't we? Because again, we are organic robots. We did not create ourselves. We did not program our genetics. We are not responsible for who our parents are, for how we're raised and all, for how our personality is formed. We simply have as much control, which is no control, over our behavior as does a puppet, robot, or a computer. Okay, and so now why is it so important? Let's, before that, explain to the audience how, a person being overweight is an excellent way to understand why we don't have a free will.
So basically, people go through life, and George has said this many times, it's all about happiness. And I don't know why psychiatrists and therapists don't approach it from this angle, but I would think the number one reason why someone would be depressed and even suicidal and then even homicidal, if you're really upset and angry at other people, is that basically you feel like a failure if you fail at something. You feel like you're not successful, you're a quote-unquote loser. Now, if you understand that, a lot of people are overweight and they are dieting and they go to the gym and they try every nutritional plan out there and they can't lose the weight, it's very obvious to see from what I just, as my premise, that you'll get very depressed thinking that you're a loser and you can't, lose the weight. It's your fault. What George is theorizing is when we tell the public that if you're overweight, it's okay. It's not, you did fail, but you're not a failure. In other words, you can be depressed that you're over, but you can't be depressed that you're
All right,
depressed.
wait a minute. You're going into the implications. I want to deal with how being overweight explains that we don't have a free will.
Because you can try and you just can't lose it. It's not up to you.
Right. So let me. All right. In more
I was
detail.
going into the implications.
Free will means that, if you want to lose weight and you start to become hungry, you might want to eat something. Free will says that you, of your free will, can decide not to eat, can decide to eat less, can decide to lose weight,
or decide to go to the gym every day.
Exactly. So consider this: if we had a free will, who of their free will would decide first to gain that weight, because people would be eating responsibly? Who of their free will would decide to not go to the gym? And then who, once they're overweight, would decide to remain overweight, would decide to not be able to resist these temptations to eat? So again, anyone who's overweight knows that, if you've been trying to lose weight, you can understand that, fine, if you're lucky, if you have a certain amount of willpower, if certain other things, in your life.
Willpower? No,
no, willpower. Not free will, but willpower. Right.
Sounds dangerously close.
Yeah, so if you have, these certain conditions, you are lucky to be able to either maintain a healthy weight or lose weight, but you know that that's not up to you. You know that you might be lucky in that way, but your friends may not be. So, being overweight is a perfect way of everyone understanding that no one has a free will.
Talk about the confusion between free will and willpower, which is very important for this discussion. Free will versus willpower.
Right. Willpower is, for example, let's say I want to lose 5 pounds, and let's say I have a lot of willpower. Let's say I've been exercising my willpower, because you can do this. Okay, that means I'm more likely to summon up the willpower, the
desire,
the fortitude, just to when I'm encounter my hunger, when I want to eat, to resist it. Okay, that's willpower. Now, somebody may not be able to; they have less willpower. But neither that person who's not able to resist the temptation, nor I, who am, have any amount of free will. In other words, if I'm able to resist that through stronger willpower, my stronger willpower is as determined, is as not in my control as it is for the other person to not be able to summon up that willpower.
So willpower is a direct descendant of your nature and nurture. Your genetics and environment determine your willpower. You can't just freely will your willpower.
All right, so
that makes sense.
Right.
Otherwise, we'd all have great willpower.
Let's get right into the politics now. 2/3 of Americans are overweight. They're being denied employment opportunities. They're being shunned by people socially. They're being mocked in public and all in the media. This is discriminatory. This is a human rights issue. Explain to the public why it's the Republicans and Democrats, politicians' duty to come to the defense of these overweight people, 2/3 of Americans, and explain to the American people that because these people do not have a free will, it's both immoral and simply logically mistaken to blame and abuse them for that.
Well, it's not just the duty of the politicians, it's the duty of parents, teachers.
I understand, but this is about the politicians.
Okay, politicians, in my opinion, are people right now during the campaign debates and on the campaign trail, they're basically doing a job interview. They're basically interviewing for the job. And they're also interviewing to be the world's most important person and the leader of our country. The leader of our country should speak honestly about life. And I believe they don't know any better. I don't know, you say they might know.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that these politicians actually believe...
I believe they do believe in free will, yes.
But are you telling me that they believe that a person of their free will can simply lose weight if they want to?
I believe the Republicans on the far right do. I think Bernie Sanders...
You want to know? I have to disagree because, this is so clear, Nick. This is so clear.
They think it's nature, nurture, and free will. They think there's a third component.
All right, but
which you're confusing with willpower. They're going to call it willpower.
But my point is, are they lying to themselves? We went through this last episode. Don't expect somebody whose job depends on their not understanding something.
Everybody that believes in free will is lying to themselves purely for the fact that it gives them more pleasure to believe in free will. It will greatly depress them. It will cause psychological and emotional damage and harm to themselves.
Well, we know that's not the case.
To shatter their worldview.
We believe
to go
it.
Against the church. I think Trump would have a nervous breakdown.
Oh, wait a minute. Slow down. Wait a minute. They may fear this, right? But let's be real. We know, we both kind of like have really deeply integrated this belief that we don't have a free will, and the opposite has actually happened. We don't blame ourselves. We have flaws, right? Do we blame ourselves for our flaws? Do we, so we can expect that, yes, fine, it may be difficult for them in the beginning, but like they have a fear that they may become depressed and lose meaning, but we know from our experience, we know that that's not going to happen.
You're too optimistic about the Republican Party. They won't get this for like 50 years. I think you're barking up the wrong tree. They're too far removed from reality, and they're too into this religious thing, which is free will.
All right, so
all the major religions are free will. The Democrats, especially the very liberal ones, if we could sit down with Bernie Sanders, if you could watch our show, and even Hillary Clinton, and even Barack Obama, to some extent, I think they could get this.
All right, so Nick,
yes.
then I want you to talk to the Democratic Party. I want you to talk to Sanders and Clinton. What are you going to tell them about this issue? What should they be saying, and how should they be saying it?
Well, first of all, I've told you this before. It's not my job to come to Earth and figure that. My job to Earth, I believe, and yours, is to announce to the world that free will is an illusion, to get the ball rolling.
But wait a minute. It's our job. In other words, if
I don't know the implication. What I would do as president, I would start a university in every state to study what the implications of no free will mean on everything. Not just weight, depression, money. I have a new $1 million plan where you can only make $1 million. You get taxed there should be. I don't think everybody should get paid the same salary. There should be some.
All right. I hear you now.
Some income.
But our job, the job that we have, not freely, but the job that we have assumed is to lead the world to this new consciousness. Now, we understand that these politicians are representing an obstacle to our mission. So I want you to talk to Hillary Clinton. I want you to talk to Sanders, and I want you to explain to them why this issue of free will relative to the overweightness and all is important. I want you to explain this.
All right. First of all, my plan is not to do it right now because we're I don't know if we're,
We can do it now, and we can do it 5 months from now.
We're basically in February of 2016. I don't like giving away the dates because sometimes we play this years later. But the campaign and the primary debates are pretty much going to end soon.
We can do it now, and we can do it again.
4 years from now, we better get a petition at a Democratic primary debate.
What do you want Clinton and Sanders to tell the American people?
I want the moderator to ask, do you believe in free will? And just let it sit there.
And what do you want Clinton and Sanders to tell the American people? Exactly.
Well, there'll be 2 new people in 4 years, but I want them to answer, do you believe in free will? Yes or no, why or why not? If they do believe in free will, then I would like to come on stage and say, do you realize how hurtful that is to everybody? Because not everybody can succeed in not being depressed and not being overweight and not being poor and not being gay and all. We don't want to feel like failures. We want to be validated, exonerated, vindicated for trying as hard as we can and still coming up short. We would like a bigger social safety net because it's not our fault.
Okay, here's what I want to hear from them. I want to hear Clinton and Sanders and the 2020 candidates say to the American people, listen, we have a huge injustice occurring when we're denying overweight people opportunities that we give to slimmer people, and it's unfair and it's mistaken, and it's time to address it. A lot of our social inequalities are due to mistaken conceptions of reality. For example, for years, women were denied employment opportunities because of this mistaken belief that women were inferior to men, that women were less intelligent than men. Now,
and slavery.
Right, yeah. Slavery also. So now, as a result of getting the fundamental reasons of why we were discriminating against women and blacks and various other groups, because people understood that their reasoning was mistaken, we were able to evolve beyond those discriminations. So what I want Clinton and Sanders and the other Democratic candidates to tell the American people is we are blaming and denying the overweight certain rights for a mistaken premise. It's as if we're trying to tell the world that the world is still flat when it isn't.
Yes.
These overweight people, it's not their responsibility. They don't have a free will. They're victims of their overweightness. And for us to allow the American people to deny them opportunities. 2/3 of the American public is simply wrong, it's immoral, and it's something that every politician should be rallying against.
As long as they can do the job, it shouldn't matter what your weight is. Obviously, you have to still be competent. But I disagree with you. You have much higher hopes. I just want a moderator at one debate in 2020 to say, do you believe in free will?
Wait a minute, who is running the country? The moderators of the debates or the politicians? The politicians have in their power the ability...
Well, first I want to hear the answer. The genie's never been out of the bottle yet. I want to hear what the answer is.
No, but what I'm saying is you're placing the onus on the debate moderators.
Well, they're not going to start talking about it until we bring it up.
No.
You think they're going to mention free will just out of the blue?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It's too taboo.
That's actually why we're doing the show, Nick.
What about Bill Maher? What about Bill Maher? He has a show called Politically Incorrect. I don't know which camera to look in. All right, Politically Incorrect. He's the #1 liberal, progressive guy in television. Sam Harris, his friend, by the way, wrote a book refuting free will. It's a red and go to Amazon. It's called Free Will by Sam Harris.
It's almost as good as our books.
It's a red and white book. It's got marionette strings with the word free will. He had Sam Harris on his show about 3 months after his, and Bill Maher, did not even ask him, what's this book about? Why is there no free will? It's very important. This is the most liberal guy, and he didn't even
so
do
what
it.
Are you telling
You're
me?
Expecting candidates without being prompted by the moderator?
Nick, why are we doing this show?
Because I'm not going to leave this planet until that question is asked.
And why are we doing this show? We're doing this show so people out in the audience talk about it. So people out in the audience talk to their friends, and their friends talk to their friends, and their friends talk to people like Bill Maher and them, and then
and get us on.
Well, fine.
Well, we don't deserve credit, but we like to get,
basically, yes. In other words,
yeah.
we need public pressure to get these politicians to do their job, to defend the rights of the overweight, and so that it may be a step-by-step process. So we're introducing the concept, we're explaining to the world why we don't have a free will. The next step certainly is for the politicians to assume their responsibility.
Going on and on about overweight, I mean, I listened to your whole thing. You only said the magical words, free will, once. You have to just come out...
Free will, free will, free will.
You said it's not your fault, overweight, this, that, you discriminate. You have to make it simple and dumb it down because people in America are not that bright. You have to get a moderator to just say 6 words. Do you believe in free will? And say nothing. Just stop. Do you believe in free will? Zip it.
All right,
Let the candidate
but you want
answer.
To know something?
Then the cat's out of the bag. Social media is going to blow up. It's going to become a huge thing. I can't believe they asked that question. And then the whole debate will begin.
Do you think
that's what I want?
Do you think our politicians, especially our Democratic politicians, leave it in the hands of the moderators to ask them?
Yes, they take questions from Facebook and YouTube all the time.
But that's part of it. That's part of those debates. What I'm saying is they're
not going to address it. No.
Sanders and Clinton do not leave up to the moderators of the debates, what they're going to talk about. In other words, there is no debate. I mean, there may be a few debates, whatever, because there's so many. But basically, these politicians ensure that these moderators are asking questions, for example, about the economy, about climate change, about various subjects. So in other words, these politicians have the power and influence and clout to make sure that they are asked about this issue of free will.
I think this is a bottom-up topic. In other words, the words grassroots and viral come to mind. This has to start with the people. Internet, YouTube, there are videos all over the place refuting free will. There's George's website, causalconsciousness.com, mine, illusionfreewill.com, freewillisfalse.com, breakingtheillusionofreewill.com. These are all viral internet grassroots. I think it has to come from the people to get it to the moderator. I don't think a candidate's just going to come out refuting free will, out of the blue. There has to be a cajoling.
Exactly. And the other thing and why we're doing this particular episode
to get that
is
out there.
Right, and politicians need a reason to impart certain truths to the public. In other words, if they were simply going to say, listen, nobody has free will and end it there, that wouldn't make sense. But if they say, listen, no one has a free will, and the reason this is important to you is because 2/3 of the American public are being denied rights, are being discriminated
against.
That,
it's poverty, it's gayness.
No, I understand, but this is we're
doing
focusing.
Overweight.
Exactly.
But to ask a politician, do you believe in free will?
I understand.
Let them answer.
This is what you're doing is moderators do not control the country. The politicians do. So basically, the politicians have the duty, have the responsibility to protect the rights of the citizens.
Yeah, but in 4 years, you and I could get a petition together,
I
send
understand.
it to you send it to them, or Bill Maher, say, I've got 700,000 signatures. Will you ask your guests, do you believe in free will?
But still, the theme of this show...
It's got to come from the bottom.
The theme of this show is what do the politicians, what do the Democrats, Sanders and Clinton, tell the American people? They tell the American people that, listen, we are discriminating against 2/3 of the American public, in jobs and all, because of a mistaken belief, because of a belief that's as mistaken as a flat earth, as a sun that revolves around the planet, as like women, being less intelligent than men, etc. So basically, they have this responsibility to, again, using the issue, this profoundly discriminatory issue of overweightness, people blaming the overweight for being overweight. That's how they do it. They say, listen, the reason we're talking about free will is because like 2/3 of the American people are being denied rights. And so it's only by understanding that nobody is overweight because of their free will we begin to talk about this in a way where people will ultimately have no logical reason for blaming the overweight.
Has anyone ever quantified the overweight, like how many job losses there are for the overweight? I don't know if it's ever been quantified.
I'm sure it has. Social scientists do this.
Like they're not represented in the
overall as a matter of fact,
job market in the same proportion as thin people.
They will actually do experiments where, like, for example, they will provide in a laboratory setting some kind of an opportunity, and like they'll provide it to somebody who's overweight and somebody who's not overweight, and the people who are judging these people will, according to these experiments, prefer the person who's slimmer. Give that person more opportunities than the overweight person in a lab. So certainly this happens in society also.
I see what you're doing now. See, George and I, we've already discussed off camera that we can't sell ice to the Eskimos. We have this great thing here. There's no free will, and we can't get anyone to pay attention. I think what you're doing is you're linking it to the overweight issue as a market. I mean, we haven't discussed this as a marketing ploy.
Absolutely.
To connect it to something tangible,
right.
Which is genius because
Thank you.
You've tried climate change and no one gets that connection.
Not yet.
But overweight. If you could, because a lot of people watching this are overweight, and you're all going to agree with us. You didn't choose to be overweight of your own free will. Of course not.
And Nick, you and I
So this is brilliant that you're linking
thank you.
it. I think that's what you're up to
yes.
now.
Now, I wish I could take credit for this, but I don't have a free will, so I won't.
Listening.
Nick keeps me modest. But you and I have not been failing this. And before we started this show, before we started your Manhattan show, before we started the meetup in Manhattan, nobody was talking about it. In the last 3 years, Scientific American Mind, New Scientist, and BBC Focus, 3 major science magazines have come out with cover stories, not just articles, cover stories refuting free will. So we are actually making progress. Now again, it's like evolution. It's not going to happen immediately, but we're part of this causal process that ultimately will result in these politicians, saying to the American people, stop blaming the poor, stop blaming the overweight for being overweight, because it's not of their free will. And that's how we can create a much more compassionate, understanding, and intelligent society.
All right.
All right. We got 4.5 minutes. Let's do some commercials. Talk about.
First of all, I think it's very smart to link it to something tangible, because you and I just going on and on ad nauseum, raising our voices, doing commercials, saying there's no free will. It's too abstract. People getting a tangible thing. The climate change is still a little abstract, but you're now linking it. I would like to link it to depression, suicide, and homicide, or even being gay. I think we did that one already.
We will do an
episode. Poverty would be good.
That's our next show.
But overweight is really great, because people can relate to the fact that who of their own free will would want to be overweight. It doesn't look too good, and it's very unhealthy.
Yeah, the great thing about this overweight
you can't help
issue,
it.
Yes, it is both explains to the American public why we don't have a free will, and explains to the American public why this belief in free will is so pernicious. It's so harmful, because it motivates so much discrimination and unfairness.
Right. So if you have a parent watching this who reprimands or admonishes their children for being overweight, they can try, to change the diet and all these other things. But if the kid just can't, you really can't look down. You really just be immoral to blame them in any which way.
All right, now I'm glad you mentioned that, because we have to clarify
even co-workers
something.
Or anything.
Some people might conclude from what we're saying that if you're overweight, there's no way you can lose weight. That's nonsense.
No,
we're not saying that people don't change. People change all the time. So in other words, if you're overweight,
but it's not because of their free will.
Right.
They change.
We're not telling you that you don't have the power to lose weight. People lose weight and keep it off all the time. What we're saying is, like, fundamentally, it's not up to you whether you're lucky enough to lose that weight or whether you're lucky enough to not have gained it in the first place. But if you're overweight, again, like, and actually by understanding that you don't have a free will, you can better understand that there are causes for your being overweight. You know, whether you have to strengthen your willpower, whether you have to kind of like become happier so you're not, you know, tempted to eat as much food. There are causes, and to the extent that you understand that you don't have a free will, you'll look at the causes much more deeply, much more clearly, and better understand why you are overweight. Do the commercial, your Manhattan show.
Okay, so hopefully we'll be an hour one day. We're going to be called Free Will Live Call-In Debate Show, if that can fit in the rectangle.
When's your show? What is it?
Every Wednesday. Well, you're watching it right now. Every Wednesdays at 11 p.m. Right now we're in White Plains taping this in the year 2016. And, you know, if you're watching this in the future, that means we still haven't made it. But, you know, to fame or whatever, we haven't gotten this out of hiding. It's still taboo, but we're on live every other night, every other week.
What station?
Channel 56, Time Warner, MNN2. I don't know what Fios and Verizon is.
I think Fios is channel 45.
It's called, you know, tell your friends, tell someone at CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox to make a real show out of this and call it, think of the ratings. People love controversy. They love debate. They love people getting fired up. Debating whether or not human beings have free will is the last great topic to come out of hiding. I mean, we've discussed everything else, I'm pretty sure. So let's get it on and let's do this. And we owe it to ourselves as an obligation as a species to get this right once and for all.
Excellent.
And even if we're not right, we are right, but we at least owe it to ourselves to debate this in public. So get everybody to watch and demand that this show gets produced on a major network, and we have all the world leaders discussing free will.
Great, okay.
Free will, not determinism, compatibilism, nothing. We got to use the words, do you believe in free will? Not God this. Free will is the magic, it's the two words that go together that are very, very combustible.
Excellent. And as we were saying, our leaders, our politicians have a duty, a sworn duty to lead our country, you know, away from discrimination, away from erroneous beliefs. And so basically, this belief in free will, when we tie it to the overweightness, it gives them a powerful motivation, incentive, rationale for explaining to the American people how we can all become fairer, kinder, more compassionate by overcoming this illusion of free will. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next time.